I can still see Bank standing outside that abandoned house, grinning as he aimed his phone light at the window he was about to smash. I did not know it then, but that was the last time I would ever see him smile like a normal person. Now he spends his days in the same room at home, staring at a blank wall and talking to someone no one else can see. Some nights he screams until his parents rush in and shake him awake. And whenever he wakes, he repeats the same words. It told me to keep going. Do not stop. It told me to keep going. None of us knows what those words mean. None of us dares to ask. It began in an ordinary group chat. Tay posted a link to an old video about Grandma Liang's house, a decaying 2-story wooden home beside the road into the village. It had stood empty for more than 10 years. Its fence had rusted through, and the trees had grown so wild they almost hid the house completely. Tay said an older student had once sneaked inside to film a video, only to be shoved to the floor by something he could not see. Then Tay laughed and called the whole story fake. Friday night, he wrote, "Who is brave enough to prove it?" Ploy and Maud replied with laughing emojis. I typed, "Fine, let us do it." Bank answered last. "I am in. What is there to be scared of?" At the time, I had no idea those words would start everything. There were 5 of us: Tay, Ploy, Maud, Bank, and me. We agreed to meet at 10 o'clock on Friday night. Grandma Liang's house was pitch black when we arrived. There were no streetlights, only moonlight filtering through the leaves that smothered the fence. Even from the road, I could smell wet earth and rotting vegetation. The gate was chained shut, but rust had eaten deep into the links. Tay wedged a stick beneath the chain and pried once. It snapped. "We are in," he whispered, excitement buzzing in his voice. The house sagged with age, though its wooden frame still looked solid. Boards covered almost every ground floor window. One pane had a spiderweb crack across it. Bank went straight toward it. "Wait," I said. "We are only here to look. We do not need to break anything." He glanced back with a grin. "Then how are we supposed to get inside? Climb a tree?" He swung his stick into the cracked pane. The glass burst inward. The sound rang across the property, and a flock of birds exploded from the roof. All 5 of us flinched. Maud's smile vanished. "Why did you have to smash it?" "It was locked. How else were we getting in?" Bank reached through the broken pane, found the latch, and opened the window. One by one, we climbed after him into the dark. Dust hung so thick inside that our flashlight beams looked solid. Moldy white sheets covered the old furniture. Beneath the stink of damp, rotting wood was another smell. Faint incense, like a joss-stick that had burned for hours and gone cold. Tay led the way, streaming from his phone to our group chat and speaking in a playful announcer's voice. The team has officially entered Grandma Liang's haunted house. Who is brave enough to watch until the end? Bank kicked over a wooden chair in the corner. It struck the floor with a crack. Then he found a locked interior door and beat it with his stick until the wood splintered around the frame. "Grandma Liang, are you real or not?" he shouted. He rapped the stick against the wall. "Come out. If you are really here, show yourself." I grabbed his arm. "That is enough. Have your fun, but stop breaking things that do not belong to you." "Belong to who? This place is abandoned." He shook me off and laughed. Across the room, Ploy folded her arms tight against her chest. "Something feels wrong," she whispered to Maud. "I want to go." I told myself the house was getting inside our heads. I was wrong. About 10 minutes later, Maud's flashlight flickered twice and died. She had put in fresh batteries before we left. When she shook it, the light came back, but its clean white beam had turned a sickly orange-yellow. "Weak batteries," Tay said, though he no longer sounded convinced. Then something moved upstairs. A slow, heavy scraping crossed the floor above us, as if someone were dragging a large object over the wooden boards. We all froze. "Probably a cat," Ploy said. Her voice trembled. The dragging stopped the instant she finished speaking. 3 knocks answered from beyond the interior door Bank had broken. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, evenly spaced. For several seconds, no one spoke. "That is enough," I said. "We are leaving." Bank laughed, but now the sound was forced. "We have not even seen anything. You are giving up already?" Maud was close to tears. "You heard that. I am going home." Bank looked around the room. Then he raised his face toward the ceiling and shouted louder than before. "You hear that? My friends want to leave. If you are real, show yourself. Stop knocking from behind the walls like a coward." His voice echoed through the house. Then every sound vanished. The silence was wrong. Until that moment, crickets had been chirping outside the broken window. Now there was nothing. No insects, no birds, not even leaves moving in the wind. The whole world seemed to be holding its breath. Ploy saw her first. She pointed toward the wooden staircase leading to the second floor, trembling so hard she could not form a word. We turned. A figure stood 3 or 4 steps below the top. It had the shape of an old woman, hunched, motionless, dressed in an old-fashioned sarong. But her face was buried in a darkness our flashlights could not penetrate. It was as if the shadows around her were thicker than the darkness anywhere else in the house. None of us moved. Neither did she. She stood as still as a figure in an old photograph. What is that?" Tay whispered, his voice breaking. The woman's head began to turn. Slowly, too slowly. It kept turning past the angle a human neck should allow, until the darkness where her face should have been pointed straight at us. Ploy screamed. Then all of us ran. I slammed into the chair Bank had kicked over. Pain shot through my leg and I almost went down, but terror dragged me back to my feet. Tay, Ploy, Maud, and I scrambled through the broken window. Glass sliced my arm as I climbed out, but I barely felt it. We regrouped beyond the fence, bent over and gasping. Then we counted. Bank was missing. "Where is Bank?" Maud cried. We shouted his name from outside the gate, again and again. None of us could make ourselves go back into the house. 5 minutes passed. It felt like an hour. Then Bank burst through the same window and fell face first into the dirt. His clothes were gray with dust. Long scratches ran down his back, as though something had seized him and dragged its nails across his skin before he tore himself free. For a while, he could not speak. When the words finally came, he whispered them over and over in a voice I had never heard before. It said, "It is not finished." It said the one who broke it has to stay. It told me to keep going. Do not stop. We lifted him into the car and drove home. No one spoke on the way. Bank could not sleep that night. He called me at 3 in the morning, his voice shaking. Something was knocking inside his bedroom wall in the same rhythm we had heard at the house. 3 knocks, silence, then 3 more. I told myself he was still in shock. I told him to keep the light on, try to sleep, and call his parents if it happened again. The next morning, his mother phoned me. She wanted to know where we had gone. Bank had spent the entire morning in a daze, refusing food and staring into the same corner of his room. The following day was worse. He began talking to empty air. Sometimes he laughed alone. Sometimes he cried and begged forgiveness from someone no one else could see. His parents took him to a doctor. The doctor said Bank had suffered severe psychological shock and prescribed medication and rest. Nothing helped. I visited him the next week. He sat on the edge of his bed, visibly thinner, his eyes hollow. He would not look at anyone. Then he saw me. He seized my arm and pulled me close. "Never go back there," he whispered. "Do not go alone. It remembers all our faces now. Mine most of all, because I was the one who broke it." I asked what he had seen after we ran. He shook his head and refused to answer. Before the nurse led me from the room, he began repeating the same words again. It told me to keep going. Do not stop. Tay, Ploy, Maud, and I never spoke about that night again. Our group chat went silent without any of us agreeing to end it. It was as if we all understood that speaking about the house might call something back. Bank has never fully recovered. His family moved to another province. The last time I heard from his mother, she said he was a little better, though some nights he still talked about the 3 knocks. Once, in broad daylight, I drove past Grandma Liang's house again. The sun was bright. Birds called from the trees. The house looked like an ordinary heap of rotting wood. But the window Bank had smashed was no longer broken. Someone had boarded it shut again, neatly. No one in the village would admit to doing it. I did not ask twice. I was not sure I wanted the answer. All I know is that as long as no one goes inside and breaks anything else, whatever lives there may remain quiet. I can only hope it does.